Then came to me and I was like, hold on. The idea about
This is right. That's fine. Would you please start? Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and happy New Year. First off, let me thank everybody for making time of the very busy schedules right after the holidays to meet with us. We have set this aside as a listening session, where we will take questions on the proposed rec and offer any answers that we might have. Let me stress a couple of things. Number one, the input from the public in this process is very important for many reasons. One of the reasons being we're all learning. This is interesting enough. I've been in this process since I joined the town. Responding to all of the public record requests, I was looking at emails back from 2010, where the discussion has come in various forms. In one instance, we were looking at a combined rec with the counts of Hopkinton and Southport. In another iterations, we were looking at the combined rec through the RECC sheriff's office, where the focus was on Privy Town. I think everyone was in the town, and the interest was in local. We then combined our communications services with the local services that are provided by the RECC sheriff's office. And then in another iteration, we were working with the towns of Bristol and Southport, looking into the possibility of maybe the left forward. And then most recently, we started off with 7 towns and have linked it down to 8 towns. So, interestingly enough, it's a topic that we have been discussing for a while, conceptually, and at the same time, it's a concept that we're learning. So, in that regard, these conversations, the questions that we are asking are very helpful and very much appreciated by all of us. The second piece I want to share is that personally, my interest in this topic is based on, number one, the town having prioritized efficiencies and continuous improvement. Also, the town over the years has shown us that regionalization is a tool that we should look into when opportunities come up. We've done that for other areas of our work. We looked at one point in combining 5 departments in Ashland and Hopkinton. And secondly, we also looked into regionalizing our health services departments with Medway, Hopkinton, and Ashland, working together with RECC. We also did the same with the same towns, Hopkinton, Ashland, and Medway, in consolidating our veteran services. And we've been regionalized district for veteran services for a while. And also, especially in public safety, clearly, regionalization is the next phase in improving the quality of services. And there will be talk about saving money. I've been very clear throughout this process that that is not what is driving population. If that happens, even better. However, we are also clear that in terms of some of the capital improvements that the community is looking for us in the coming months, I mean in the coming years, the numbers are pretty substantial, and therefore accessing state grants to be able to do that is something that we want to look into. The third thing I want to mention in terms of my involvement is my understanding clearly is that where is this big visibility is. And that's why it's important for us to gather the information and get input from as many voices as possible. Which therefore brings me to my other area of focus. We currently have a communication services department staffed by exceptionally brilliant employees doing great work for this community. I want to make it clear to the community that our discussions on this topic are not in any way suggesting any fault or weaknesses in our systems. We're simply looking at this from a viewpoint of improving quality, service delivery, and processing. I realize too that these conversations affect something that I really care about as a town manager. One of the things that we pride ourselves on here in Hopkinton is that we want not just our residents, but also our staff to feel safe and secure. I will be the first one to accept that this conversation doesn't meet that goal. In the sense that, as we have here, there are concerns regarding job security. Let me assure you that as town manager, the same principles that guided us when we were looking into consolidating fire and police dispatch remain paramount to me. Number one, making sure that when we have a clear understanding of the concept, we will include our frontline staff in our discussions, similar to what we did with the consolidation when we're looking to consolidate with fire between Ashland and Hopkinton. Our fire unit was equitable. That's the principle that we abide by going forward. The second piece is, whilst we can't guarantee what this district is going to look like, what positions are going to be available, we will find as hard as we can make sure that no one loses their job. We cannot guarantee that because we won't be the ones deciding alone on the staffing, governance, and the staff. More so, if the decision and it appears so, if the decision to go with this, that will be a separate entity from making a hiring decision on its own. With that, we want to open this up and give everybody the opportunity to ask any questions you may have. Again, on behalf of this team, or if you have any questions you may have, we really appreciate you taking time to read the sessions with us, and we really encourage you, all of us, to really ask us any questions. We may not get the answers to, but we'll make sure that as the process unfolds, we will get into those questions.
Hey, before we get to that, it's really difficult to hear on the Zoom what you're saying. If the microphone can be moved closer to the speakers, we're having a really hard time hearing you.
Yes. Oh, please. Yeah, please. So can you hear me now?
That's much better. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
We can't hear them.
Yeah. So Ben, how many people do we have online?
9 people in the conference, in the Zoom, including you.
So very fast with our audio system.
Ask for resident to speak.
Okay. Hey, Peter, do you mind speaking? We just want to hear test the volume.
Yep. Is it? Can you hear us now?
Oh, now then, clear. Thank you. Thank you. So here's what we're going to do. We will check questions in here and switch to the remote participants and go back and forth. So we will, I want to be calling first. We will start with anyone from here who has any questions. Go ahead. And again, thank you so much for the questions that you wanted to ask.
The place I can sit and spread my.
Yes.
My lap isn't that big.
Go ahead.
Always thank you. Yeah, but I get no answers. So,
Yeah, just, you know, when you speak, just towards the TV, please don't you? And that's what we're back on.
thank you. Well, first of all, thank you. Would say that any process to make public safety more efficient and to possibly reduce tax burden on the residents is a good thing. I will say that this kind of came out of a blue, you know, beginning of December, people started to go. I will say that the information to the public has not been good. They don't know much about it. And hopefully this process today, tomorrow, will be the start of educating the residents on what this process is and the reason that we are even in it. Just if I can, Mr. Norman, if did I hear you right? That you said this process isn't about saving money for the town? Is that what you said?
To be clear, what I say is that at least for me, the primary driver is not saving money. Because I've been in this process before, where from a couple of perspectives. Number one, based on my experience working on consolidating police and fire, as all of you know, our goal there was not to save money. We made it clear that this is going to cost the town eventually more. We were very clear even then that what we wanted to do was to build up capacity that we could sell or share with other communities. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not so focused on how much money we save, but rather on the quality of the service that we provide. The second reason why I'm not focusing on money as the driver right now is because we're not there yet. The concept is not only bad. It will be misleading for anybody to say, hey, we're going to save $2 here because we don't know what this is going to look like going forward. We are in the feasibility stage. We will then move on to where we have much more clearly defined plans for how it moves forward. Only then can we have a clear understanding of what it will cost.
Can I ask the length of the feasibility phase? So we're talking about feasibility. And what's the expectation of the feasibility information?
Yeah, we are at the tail end right now of the feasibility phase, where a feasibility report has been compiled by the consultants. Some concepts have been put forth. We just had a meeting about an hour ago where we started talking about the next steps. The next steps being to finalize site selection. If this is going to move forward, what site might be built into the final plan.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because my first thing was gonna say that, I thought this was all driven by money, and that you're gonna somehow have to justify the services, to be acceptable to the town, but we're saving X amount of money isn't gonna be worth it. So taking the savings off the table, and now it would be up to the town to tell the residents why moving their dispatchers out of Hopkinton into a building in Westboro will give them better services. I'm gonna look forward to hearing that, which hasn't been made public yet. So we'll certainly you'll be explaining that to the residents of Hopkinton at some point, hopefully today. But in the meantime, I do have my questions that if we could get to them that we could answer. And the first one is dispatchers losing their jobs. You touched upon it, Norman. In the study, they had between the 4 towns a model that had 15 full-time dispatchers. What I saw from the towns of Grafton, Southborough, Westboro, and Hopkinton were 25 full-time dispatchers. That's 10 dispatchers losing jobs. And my understanding is the way this process works is everybody gets laid off and they have to apply for a job. Best case scenario, 10 dispatchers losing jobs. So from somewhere. What do we say about that?
Good question. I think, as I said earlier on, the numbers that you're referring to are from the feasibility study. We do not have the final starting plan. Throughout this conversation, I give credit to Megan. She's been very firm on the need to discuss and advocate staffing level for the facility. So Hopkinton is committed to making sure that whatever concept moves forward is adequately staffed. We visited a RECC yesterday where clearly we saw operationally what it would look like. They are implementing that RECC is a full-blown RECC. They also do E911. We have not discussed the E911 studies of this concept. So the answer is yes, you're correct. The feasibility study does identify some numbers. For us, for me personally, those are conceptual numbers. We have been steadfast throughout this process through the efforts of Megan in ensuring that we will continuously push for staffing the RECC appropriately and accurately. We've done this here in Hopkinton, where when we start the joint police and fire, we went for full capacity. Knowing fully well that in that excess capacity serves us well when there's a surge in calls and demand.
Okay, it's a good, still doesn't really answer my question.
To be clear, we cannot answer the question until we finally agree on something.
And when and how is that going to be? Now you got 3 other towns that are probably having the same conversation, telling their same dispatchers, we're gonna fight for you, we're gonna staff you, we're not gonna get you laid off. I'm just, I don't want this to get lost on the thing that, when is this gonna be decided? How is it gonna be decided? When is it gonna be made known to the public of how many dispatchers are gonna get laid off?
When we get to the phase, which we're beginning now, of drawing up an IMA, Hopkinton is going to fight for a clear definition of the staffing needs.
Okay, and if the study stays pat, they say, this is what we want, 15 dispatchers. What's Hopkinton's answer?
The answer will be prove to us that that will work and maintain the quality of services that we continue to enjoy in town.
Okay.
Can I interject as well? So I was at the tour last night too. So I think I'm hearing 2 questions, right? One is, how are we thinking about our value of base of service? Well, over time, and that's an important question. The other question is about a staffing plan and how we'll try and, if we get to that point, how we'll try and advocate to have it adequately staffed. But it isn't true that we can guarantee that people who are working at Hopkinton now will be on staff. That was made clear to us last night. But beyond any shadow of a doubt, and we don't really have control about even that we have control negotiating agreements, but ultimately we don't have control over the staffing management. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, if the decision is to move forward with the district, the hiring decisions will be made by the district. So vacancies will be posted.
Right, you brought that up, so I know we've been talking rec centers, and you went to go see one yesterday. Now you're throwing in districts, I know that's another model that was in the study. I mean, is that even on the table? Should we be talking about going into a wireless district, or are we just concerning with the 3 other towns in a rec center?
No, the reference to a district is in relation to the governance structure. Similar to TikTok, where several towns come together and TikTok and that consortium of towns is considered a legal entity designated as an education district. So similar to the towns that will participate, the decision is to go with the district, and that is what's recommended in the feasibility study. The 4 towns will then, for a special act of legislation, come together as a district providing the specific data.
So I'm sorry, can you guys hear us on the Zoom? So it's very easy to hear the guy at the table. Thank you very much. Norm, you need to move closer to the microphone. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And then the second thing is, are we gonna go around the, when do we get to ask questions?
As soon as we're done with the PET, we will switch to the remote participants.
Perfect, thank you.
So I just said there's a follow-up question.
Yes, my question is, if we run pretty much like a well-oiled machine, and you're looking to improve the quality, how is it putting people
here? I'm sorry, I just.
It's on the. My question is, if you're looking to improve the quality of the service, how are you going to bring in people from other towns to guarantee that the service is going to be better? We've been working for 20, 14, 3 of us have been 5 years to build a rapport with the community to give them the things that they need. So how is it going to be better if we lose our jobs and people from Westboro, Southboro are going to come in? How is that going to be better?
Another good question. We've all been in this business for a while. If the situation you described happens, clearly, yes, there has to be a learning curve. And so there may be a drop in quality of service as people learn their new roles. Going forward, if Hopkinton participates in the process, we will focus and fight for staff development, training, practice, and quality support to ensure excellent services are delivered for the time. Excuse me. So we're gonna switch now over to the. Do you mind?
Yeah, no, Chuck said yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Peter.
Hi, it's Peter Thomas. Thank you, guys. This question for the chief, Chief Miller, that is. Chief, can you talk about the current EMS infrastructure that is in place in Hopkinton and how you see that changing or improving under a RECC?
Sure. So Pete, I'll break it down in a couple different parts to answer that question. So currently, I want to be very open and frank that regional communication centers in the fire service are very popular. They've been around for decades. They're going to be around for decades. They work on the fire side. I will not speak for the police side. So for the fire side, they work very well. And the other thing that you need to look at, Pete, with this is our current system. We have 2 dispatchers. One's a primary call taker, works for the PD. The police fire dispatcher will listen in and start the CAD call from there. By going to a RECC, you're getting more people into that. You can have more people working during a major event where those people are already on staff. So as far as changing the EMS component of it, it won't change. We're still bound by OEMS laws that we have to meet certain criteria, and we're still going to continue to follow those.
But it's certain the technology, I guess, is what I'm wondering about. I mean, this is brand new, so I'm assuming it's new technology and it's, let's just put in air quotes, better than what we have today. Is that true? Or is it the same as what we would have today from a technology standpoint?
Technology standpoint, we would use the same software, Amble Pro, which is our state reporting software. So that wouldn't change. It's just what we would be using for a CAD and RMS software, how that inputs the data into Amble Pro.
Records management system.
Yes.
The computer aided dispatch.
In terms of the number of calls you're taking approximately this year versus what you project to take in 23 and 24, is that growing, shrinking?
Growing.
How significantly?
Our projection, we've had our busiest year this year. We're at 2,512 calls this year, which is our busiest year ever for Hopkinton Fire. Within the next couple of years, we're projected to be between 2,600 and 3,000 calls for the community.
Yes, in fact, in that regard, Chief, one of the issues that has come up that has been of interest to me are the number of back-to-back calls.
Yes.
And related to that, the calls that require medical aid.
Correct. So that's another thing is the community is growing. We're noticing and we're feeling the impact, and the dispatchers can speak on it as well too. We're having multiple calls at the same time. The consecutive calls within 15 minutes, within 30 minutes, within 60 minutes is happening daily and weekly. So those numbers again are on the rise. The requests for services are definitely rising.
So what happens? I mean, this is just explained to me like I'm a 5-year-old because I'm not in your business. What happens when you get a consecutive call today from, you know, the ambulance is out somewhere already? Our local dispatcher, do they have to call a neighboring town? Is that what happens today? And would that situation be eliminated with a RECC?
So if both the ambulances are out, the answer is yes. Our dispatch system today would have to call a neighboring community. One of the benefits of working in a RECC with communities that we provide mutual aid and receive mutual aid from is if Chief Bennett and I are working the 2 fire desks, and Chief Bennett happens to be covering Westboro and Southboro, and I have Hopkinton and Grafton, and Hopkinton needs another ambulance, I can look at Chief Bennett and say, is Westboro available? Or he can look at me and say, Westboro's not available. We can't even send anything. So that will cut down on the phone conversation time. Now, again, it will also have an impact on moving the resources quicker, and that is one of our goals.
We're talking like a 30-second to hit the button and ask for mutual aid.
I'm sorry, I don't want to
Like
say.
when we call for mutual aid, it's picking up a phone and hitting the button, and they're listening most of the time to our radios. So we're talking about a 30-second to get mutual aid.
You also have to assume that the RECC would be adequately staffed. If the RECC is running with minimum staffing, you get the same result as having the 2 dispatchers that are currently in Hopkinton, because you're functioning the same.
Again, I think the town manager has stated, Kylie, that staffing has not been determined. Everyone's hanging their hat on the numbers.
If the RECC is adequately staffed, you don't necessarily have that issue. But if it is running at minimum, which I believe you saw yesterday, they are running at minimum. They stated they were running at minimum at the Century.
Not the ship that we saw yesterday. No.
They said they were having issues, is what I was told by somebody who went with you. They were having issues staffing at maximum capacity. They were often being forced in. So with that being said, if you're at minimum staffing, based off of what a contract says, because if you staff it for minimum and you have those numbers listed, let's say it's 2, because we're working off of the feasibility study, because those are the only numbers we have provided. You're gonna get the same service as if you were calling just Hopkinton. Because 2 people, regardless of whether I can tone out Westboro right away, it's me calling them versus toning. I still have to put the information in.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Can I also, just from yesterday, I just want to make sure that I'm validating what I heard too. Again, this is like a 2-part question for me, in that how they talk about that they understaffed and so they're having trouble advocating to build up to staffing that they want to have. And so separate from that would be the issue of whether or not they can staff the way they're contracted. So there's a couple of layers that I heard yesterday. So I just want to think about.
I just have a follow-up to ask a question.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you very much. The first one is also about the staffing, and on the feasibility study, it says on page 3, it says the project team does not recommend changing the ratio in this time. Well, the ratio is a total of 15 dispatchers and 1 supervisor, so that would be 2 per shift. That's exactly what we have right now. So to Kylie's point, I don't see what the difference would be. In the past point, I would be extremely upset if a minimum of 9 of our dedicated employees are all of a sudden unemployed. My other question is, you were talking, Chief, about the response time and dispatch time and all that. And on page 27 of the RECC feasibility study, it says the NFPA standards require that 95% of the alarms should be answered within 15 seconds. Now, I understand that an alarm is a 911 call or an alarm is essentially right now an alarm. According to the dispatch communications matrix in 2021, we answered the calls, answered the alarms and the calls within 3 seconds. So I'm just wondering what we would gain by going to a RECC if right now the dispatch staff that we have far exceeds the NFPA requirements.
May I jump in before you answer? Please. Let me preface this by, again, here's another excellent question. It's an area of interest to us. It's an area that we're exploring. And clearly, we even had this yesterday. We have to understand how we're collecting information on response times currently to be able to compare it with what would be the case going forward. I'll let the Chief make a response.
So Chuck, answering the phone is one part of it. Getting this call out, NFPA states within 45 to 60 seconds. That's from the time the 911 phone rings, the data being taken and us being dispatched within 45 to 60 seconds. We witnessed this last night. We saw a 911 call come in. This call takers on the 911 call, medical, town of Franklin, automatically alerts the Franklin dispatcher. They're still on the phone doing 911. Calls being sent out within 45 seconds. That's the NFPA numbers. I think what's happening is we're having 2 numbers that are overlapping. We're talking about a call processing time and we're talking about a call answering time. Answering time is that 3 second that you're talking about. Processing is 45 to 60 seconds from the data that's getting taken in and that call and us being dispatched. That's the NFPA standard. That's the way it works.
Do we have the ability to determine what the call time is currently?
Yes, ultimately. Some of it can be pretty hard to gather because it requires going back to listening to the actual call, which obviously is very time consuming. But ultimately the answer is yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and then answering this question is like one of the emphasizes. It's an area of interest to us. We're exploring how best to articulate it, how best to measure it, and hopefully throughout this process we will learn and provide more accurate information.
Mr. Kamala.
Go ahead, Peter.
The feasibility addendum says that the technology that we're using is 30 years old and that there are dead spots in the town of coverage. The cost to replace is estimated at 1.25 million over 3 years. How will this cost be avoided by a RECC, or will it not?
Generally, and I'll let Megan speak to this because she's the one who normally applies for grants for us. What we've been told and what I believe the RECC will do is to provide us with an opportunity for the state 911 grant process to fund capital requests that are included in our grant application, so long as the grant application is approved by the state will fund. Megan?
Yeah,
So-
the development grant, which is the grant that Norman is talking about, it is a competitive grant. There are other grants offered by State 911 that are essentially not competitive. This development one is, so you have to apply for it, explain out, everything you're looking to do, what you're looking to spend, give your budget, all that kind of stuff. And then they look at it, I call it on a tier-based system, where like first chance gets it if you've never applied for a development grant before. Second chance is another metric of you've applied, but you're not completely up and running, or I can't recall off the top of my head the metrics of them all, but it's like a tiered system. So
are you projecting then that the grant will cover and fund the cost to replace the radio system? And is that what you're kind of banking on then?
I mean, I would absolutely hope that would be the case, because it's a very big price tag. And that is what the feasibility study is saying, that the grant will cover it. So,
But it's competitive and there are other towns that, is there a possibility that we would not receive the money?
yes. That your grant would not be accepted, yeah.
We can share though that we've been told by consultants that for all the incoming RECs, the RECs that have been formed in the state, all of them have been successful applying. But doesn't guarantee that they will be successful. Okay. Hi.
I guess I have a two-tiered question as far as grants go. So if we join the RECC, we fill out the grant, we're approved, we get a new radio system, and we decide that the RECC isn't working for us, are we responsible for paying for those radios out of pocket?
Here's my understanding. Town decides to join the RECC. Town decides to opt out of the RECC at a future date. At the time the town comes out of the RECC, it will be responsible for the share of the costs incurred to that date.
Okay, so
However, there's one piece that we are now learning too, that there are ways perhaps to protect the town. And one way is not to keep up our radios. I'll let you guys explain. This is what was shared with us.
Not to do money.
Keep up our radios.
but don't we need new radios? Wasn't that part of the study? We needed new radios, we needed new systems in place, which is why we'd be applying for that grant in order to do so.
I think, again, I'll let Megan and the chiefs respond to this. I think what I heard from the chief of police a couple of weeks back was that it's not our entire pool of radios that need to be replaced immediately.
Essentially, yes, we have some components that are very old, some that are newer, so it's.
I'm just speaking to this new point.
But
in order to keep radios, you have to have radios at first.
you do. Yeah, I mean, if there is, part of this. As Norm stated, the opt-out portion, there is some form of a financial responsibility, is my understanding.
Now, if we were to just apply for a grant separate from the RECC to update the suit equipment, that's just money granted to us, correct?
Yes, but it wouldn't cover the entire system per se, it would only cover dispatch related portions of the entire radio system. So like it wouldn't pay for towers,
That's not to say
But-
the chiefs couldn't apply for a different form of grant to cover the remainder.
I can't speak to any grants that they would know of or anything, but maybe, or the town would have to pay the remainder or however.
Can either of you speak on what Norman was referring to as far as keeping radios?
I can, Chief, if you. Sure. So there's two parts to it, Kathy. So the first part is, you can, when you opt into a RECC, you can keep your own radio system and maintain your own radio system is option A. Or option B is the RECC takes everything over completely, i.e. the Holbrook RECC is a great example. Holbrook owns all of its community's radio and is 100% responsible for maintenance, repair, replacement of all of the communities that are part of the Holbrook RECC. So there's two options, and again, we have not decided which way we're going to go. That's what, to answer you, we can't, because we don't know which way we're going.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a little bit of a question, it's similar to that. Okay. Maybe one back. On the same level there with the radios, if we give up our PSAP, can we get it back? If we choose to go back to our own system, and if we do choose to go back, is there a cost associated with getting the PSAP back?
Historically, no, you cannot get it back. The state will not get it back.
So when Hopedale went back, did they get the PSAP back?
No, Upton answers their 911 calls. It's through an
I
agreement.
think that's a significant issue, certainly, that if this thing were. I just got back admittedly, like Peter did, all I did was walk for 2 weeks. I think that's an important piece we have to look at, because nothing's a given, and if we decide to go this route, and then we decide to go back to it, losing that ability to answer the 911 calls and the enhanced 911, so we can also see on a screen where if a cell phone is being called 911 in the state park, in the Upton State Park, anywhere around that's in Hopkinton, we can see within, I think, a 30-meter range of where they are. And that's a nice, that's a bonus for us to be able to do that. And I think when I first came here, we were one of the test sites for a lot of that Verizon technology, correct?
We were one of the first for the last round of 911 equipment, yeah.
So just something to be concerned with is that PSAP.
Thank you.
Moving on.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to check. Is there anybody else online who has a question other than Peter? Okay, Peter, go ahead and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, guys. Real simple questions for both chiefs. Do you think this is a good idea for the town personally? Do you endorse this, Chief Miller?
Yes.
Chief Bennett? Was that a yes? I couldn't hear.
Chief Miller is a yes.
Thank you.
For my first statement, I'd like to say that I'm really proud of the work that our communicators and our police officers do. I'm proud of the collaboration among them and the way they step up and support each other. As your chief, you make that decision. Whatever you ask me to build, I will.
As far as I go, going back to Chief Miller, what you said earlier is one of my major concerns. You said that when you and Chief Bennett were on the table and somebody needed a fire truck and or a response, you check with Chief Bennett if it's available, you'd send them. Right now, I know police and fire are different, but the way we work in the police business is we go to the area closest town to get mutual aid from. So if we're down by the high school, we'd call Milford for aid or Holliston for aid. If we were on West Main Street, we'd call Upton for aid. My concern is that we'd get into this wreck, would be in the sport town group. Dispatchers would talk to each of the towns. We need help somewhere, and because we're in that wreck, they would send mutual aid from a town in that wreck to the aid, and that'd be a concern of mine. Instead of picking up the phone, calling the town that is closest, that'd be a concern.
So Pat, that's another great question. And one of the pieces we've learned in visiting the Metaconic, which is the Met from Norfolk, which hosts 6 communities, they ran into exactly that problem. So the way that is worked around is you will still use your closest resource. So if we are down on Route 85 on the Milford side, Milford still will respond for mutual aid. If we're on the east side of town, Ashland will still respond with resources. And again, I'm using an example of the map. They ran into this, and what they did is they have a geographic map. So when the call comes in and they process the map will come up for the dispatcher, and if all that community's resources are busy and mutual aid is needed, it maps out and says the closest fire station or the closest community will be the next one call. It's already pre-mapped and preloaded. The computer just draws it back out and allows that dispatcher just to simply look at the screen and go, Hopkinton or Milford is the next closest.
Okay. If I could just expand on Peter's question, he asked the chiefs what they felt about this process. At the December 6th select board's meeting, we heard from our dispatch unit, we heard from our police officers, the local union through letter by President DeBoer was against this regionalization. I have not heard or read anything from our fire department, firefighters. I would hope certainly when you guys are looking into this process that you would talk to all stakeholders, all the people that were involved, that you talk to the police officers, you talk to the firefighters. Could you enlighten us a little bit on where your firefighters stand, whether they are for this or against this?
Right now, Pat, the firefighters are neutral. Like if you're talking about the unions, if you want to, that's what we're speaking about. The union is not saying anything right now.
I'm talking about the firefighters. There's reason people don't come out and talk, and you know, I want to know what their true feelings are.
I don't know what their true feelings are.
Have you talked to them?
Yeah, we've actually talked to the lieutenants. The lieutenants are our biggest go-to, the deputy guy. They're 100% in favor of moving to a rec.
Okay, how about the actual firefighters that go out there?
They haven't said anything.
Yeah, and you haven't heard, lieutenants haven't talked to them, and
No.
have you been curious to ask?
Honestly, the feedback we take is from the lieutenants because they'll return it to us from their line staff. If there's
Okay, so their line staff, have they communicated to their lieutenants on what they feel?
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, do you think it's worth checking into?
We can ask. We can ask. Sure.
Can I just make a comment on?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say real quick, as being part of a regional center for 4 years, that it's important for the town to realize that every call that comes into a regional center gets prioritized. So if you think your emergency is an emergency, right now, we're here in minutes. When you're part of a regional center, it's prioritized. So you could sit on the bottom of the list for 20 minutes. It goes from the most important call to the least important call. Just something for you guys to think about. And also, as far as the firefighters, we spend a lot of time chatting with the firefighters, and a lot of them are against it, or we're told to just not get involved in it. We're very friendly with a lot of them. They love how we work with them, but they just really don't want to get themselves done.
Hold on, Peter.
Yeah, Norman, I have a question. That is. What is the time frame on making a decision? Who or what board makes the decision? Yes or no? Thank you.
It's a good question. It's another good question. I always convey that in our training, no one has written a book to explain in very simple terms the different phases in the formulation of any concept or project. But with that is it, here's my understanding. As I say, the village study concluded. But now moving to the next phase, where before I get to the next phase, let me answer the second part of the question. The feasibility study, the technical decisions, town manager, fire chief, communications director, police chief, we're part of the process. We can make decisions day to day on what to do with this feasibility study. Now, the next phase is doing the piloting. the IMA is signed between two towns. And in this case, the decision will have to be made by the city of each town. And following that would be a decision which Hopkinton continues to be part of the process, would be a decision on applying for a grant. My thinking is when the towns, if the town decides to sign on the IMA, we have to be absolutely clear what goes into the town. Because we have to guarantee and make sure that the things that are saying, we are saying are very important for this community, get funded.
Okay, thank you.
And then the next issue, if the decision is to go into a district that is made through special legislation, would require town meeting approval. Now, for town meeting approval, we send it to the legislature also for enactment.
Norman, Pro Phoenix.
Yeah.
Peter, I got you right next there.
Guys, thank you. Hey, so to the earlier point about the RECs essentially prioritizing calls, is there a service level agreement that the REC commits to the town? And is there a review process for that in terms of, response time, dispatch time, things like that? And then is there a review process for that? If so, how often? And is there a financial penalty or some kind of penalty for them not adhering to the SLA, if that is in fact the case?
Big picture level, I'll set the context. I think if Hopkinton decides to participate in the process, we will insist in having some system in place to monitor, evaluate, assess progress as the plan is implemented. So, yes. For example, right now, my expectation is that Megan is meeting regularly with representatives from fire and police and reviewing issues that come up and resolving them as they come up. And so in terms of specifics, chiefs, anything you would like to add?
Well, we would, both of the police and fire chiefs would be members of an operations board, which would meet regularly and would be the ones that develop all the protocols and policies. Each town would have a representative of each. And then there's a governance board, which follow it for like an e-board.
Thank you.
Pro Phoenix, the police chief's been talking about that for a couple of years to the select board about the new operating platform that the police department uses that opens up the window for the community. We're the only one of those 4 towns that use Pro Phoenix. The other 3 towns use a platform called IMC. Where do we go from here?
That has not been decided. It will be discussed as the process moves forward.
There's a lot of not been decided yet, and I don't know when decisions are going to be made, or hopefully we're not going to be asking the board to be making any decision until these questions can be made. So we don't know if the other towns are going to go to Pro Phoenix or we're going to abandon it and go to IMC. We don't know that at this point.
We don't know. However, what I know is that most of the systems that are in place now can work with each other. I don't know if Pro Phoenix can work with IMC.
How much did the town spend on Pro Phoenix?
So we need to provide that information.
I don't know that, I don't know.
Did you get a response on that?
I can't open the file.
Oh, okay. Did it come from your corner?
That was in PDFs. I sent you the
I can't do it. I spent about 30 to 40 minutes trying to open files the other day.
which file was this one?
No, Connor. They can't hear you.
Definitely understand.
It was a weird file. I'm unable to open it.
Were you able to send it? Okay, I didn't get anything. I can just give you another version. I can do it as a Google Doc or a Google folder and just share it with you too.
I just think it's important to know what the town has already spent on a new system that was put in within the last year to 2 years. I also think it's, as a dispatcher who may or may not be going into a rec center, to know that if I have to move between platforms, if it is the case that it is something that can be carried with us, that can be difficult, so.
Megan, you're a pro Phoenix girl. Is it compatible with other,
I don't know, it is with some, I am assuming, but I don't know for certain.
you know?
We don't have to use an interface with any other softwares for like RMS and CAD, so I don't have that answer.
So we did hear something about that last night at the tour. I don't know that they're compatible, but if software is not compatible, the towns will, apparently the rec or the state will provide the new software, but for training and onboarding and getting up to speed on the new technology will be something we have to do in the town.
Is it new, so sorry, is it new technology for just communications or is it new technology for the entire department?
So I don't know.
We would have, well, first off, IMC is coming to end of life. We're not going to skip IMC. I would advocate if the town chooses to go to a rec, that we use Pro Phoenix, and we're the only ones in the conversation that have a product that is end of life. If we did switch the vendor, we would need, if there's no link to Pro Phoenix, we would need to put a newer software records management system into the police department.
One more question, I'll get out of here. I got a ton of them, but
We wanted to say.
yeah, I'll not leave, but the other big thing I think that people want answers for is the station going dark. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
One of the follow-up items from the feasibility study is to answer that question. I think I've stated my position publicly, and so has the chief. We are pro customer service, and I would not support the station going down.
Okay, so with my calculations math is you need somebody there 24/7. If you're gonna have somebody at the desk, unless you want to put an officer there. So we have the admin staff, but the chief might have a meeting, just deputy might have a meeting. Detectives may be on calls, so there's no guarantee there'll be anybody in the station. So Monday through Friday day, you'd have to staff. Then after that, you would have to staff, right? If you don't want to keep it dark, you gotta have somebody there. So you would seem to have someone in the station 24/7. And hopefully it's not gonna be a Walmart greeter. Hopefully it's gonna be someone that's trained and qualified, crisis management, prisoner watch, be able to help officers in that situation. So you're gonna have to hire a qualified person like a dispatcher with that amount of pay. So my question would be, if that's what you're gonna do, if you're gonna hire someone that is qualified like a dispatcher, that's one person 24/7, we got two people 24/7 now. So as far as the town's department budget, you're just taking that dispatch pay and shaving it by half. You're still gonna have to pay half. Then you got what would have to pay to the rec center. So my question that I sent in was, what would be that cost to staff the department so it wouldn't go dark?
Contextually, my experience so far is that all our senior leaders are continuously assessing their staffing needs. That is the same, I believe, with public safety. On this part-time meeting, we got 20-town meeting, and found additional money or secured additional money to support communications. And thus, as we said earlier on, just wrapping up the feasibility study. As we develop the plan, as we decide to move forward, we will get the answers to that question. I'll let the chief.
No, thank you, Norman, because right now I can't tell you I know the solution. It would be something that would have to go through a budget process. I have reached out to other chiefs in RECs, and there's a lot of different ways that it is accomplished. And some involve the use of police officers, which is a question from the community, and some don't. So for me, I'll say it, I don't support a dark station. or an unoccupied station. And I would hope that this wouldn't cause a reduction in my staff. By taking a cop off the road and putting them on.
So you've talked with other departments, could you just, because we may never be all here together again, so could you just let us know what are different options to keep the station from going dark?
Sure. One community grew the size of their department and has an officer on the desk. One community did a combination of clerical staff to get to 7 p.m. and then their officers rotate through.
So we're gonna put a $80,000 officer in the station to answer calls.
This is just how they respond.
Okay,
I'm not,
I know you're not advocating, I just want to make that clear that that doesn't seem most proven. So, any other solutions?
well, you can enhance the staff as well, like, let's say, prisoner watch. If we have to accomplish that, a civilian that might be working might not want to be doing prisoner watch, so we would do short term with the arresting officer and then move to a safety program with the Middlesex County Sheriff's Department, where we would transport the person to the facility, and then in the morning they would bring the person to court or after the weekend. So there's different varieties of it, of ways to get there, but I can't today tell you what it would look like.
Thank you, Chief.
I just don't know how you can move forward with signing an IMA. Can't answer something that both you as the town manager and the chief of police has said, we don't want a dark station. We would not want a dark station, but by signing that IMA, you're saying you're moving forward within to the bigger picture. And then essentially you're locked into some form of money with an IMA.
Again, if I'm hearing you correctly, you are raising a valid point. I would not recommend the town to do what you just described. What I would recommend the town to do is, if we're moving forward, we do our due diligence in drafting an IMA before we design.
When will we know, when will we have a drafted IMA?
We're just having this.
Isn't that something we need to know prior to your board voting on whether we're moving forward with an IMA?
When the board voted, so nobody's mentioned the date when the board is voting.
That's what I'm asking. When is the board voting on if their sign?
That's not what you have. Here's how it's going to happen. We will receive some concept. I think there's already a concept in the draft report. We will review it internally. We'll seek input from relevant respective departments. If we are comfortable with that document, we will then bring it to the board for its review.
There's a draft in what, for feasibility study? Or
There's a draft in the feasibility study.
why is the draft in the feasibility study strong enough to move forward if the numbers in the feasibility study aren't?
I didn't say this draft in the feasibility study is strong enough to move forward. I said it's a draft that we can reference. Every contract I've negotiated for this town has been in the best interest of the town. We're seeking information and input right now to have a better understanding of what to push for in an IMA. So what you see in the draft feasibility, the final feasibility study, is not what, if there's no soil, what is for the design.
So will there be a finalized IMA prior to the board voting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Peter.
My last question, thank you so much. According to the report, we're spending $714,000 a year on 911 services. That includes staff, tech, everything else. And under the RECC, we would spend 200 and some change. So it'd be about 480,000 in savings, according to the report. What is the town's plan for reallocating that money or using that money, or is there a plan for that, or is that part of the diligence process?
Yeah, this will be part of the due diligence process. Again, my approach is, this is a feasibility study. We asked the consultant to look into conceptually, is this feasible? Can this move forward? Now we'll go into the details and have much more finer, refined data to formulate our plans going forward. Based on what I know, we will be looking at different numbers.
Okay, are we linked to this decision? I just had a follow-up for Chief Bennett. And we got him at Dock Station, and Chief, I know you're on record as Norman, I believe Amy Ritterbush is that. You don't support a Dock Station, and I'm glad to hear that, because you know, somebody that worked there for 30 years, I would never ever want that to happen. But as you know, the dispatchers do a lot of other you know, administrative duties. I can say personally, on a personal note, that when I was assaulted in the cell block, a dispatcher came to my aid, and you know, I have a lot to thank for the dispatchers for that. You know, would they? Is that something that they would currently do on the feasibility study? There's 15 criteria or 15 jobs that have been mentioned. It said it spoke with other chiefs. And currently our department staff, the dispatchers do 11 out of the 15. The other thing that was noted in the rec, some of the downfalls is nobody at the window, nobody to give questions to answers, the lack of local involvement, the lack of local landmarks. So I'm hoping that this is something that we continue to look at. I'm also concerned, as you said, that I don't think it would be a viable option to have police officers babysitting a dock station unless we're going to expeditiously grow our police staff, which I'm in favor of. But as you know, as a you know, patrol officer, if you take somebody out of the station from patrol to babysit a dock station, now that's an officer safety issue for the staff that's on the road. So I'm hoping that that doesn't happen. My other concern about is, you know, so far this year, we've had over 300 walk-ins to the station that the dispatchers have answered questions for. I would hate to say if we go to a wreck that we're going to have 300 unhappy people that came to the police station to get answers for something and they were turned away, or they had to push a button and talk to somebody on a video monitor. I hope that doesn't happen. My other concern is Marathon Day. What are we going to do? We all know on Marathon Day, we use multiple command posts to have a secure, family-friendly event. Is that something that's going to hamper our ability on Marathon Day? So I hope, you know, that everybody collectively does the best for the town and we come to the right decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wasn't thinking of that.
No, I was at the tour last night, and just something that they did stress is that, and Peter was coming up with a figure of savings, and they really stressed last night that this is not a cost saving to the town. The town is going to have expenses having to do with the regional district, and you know, who knows, maybe even construction costs coming up. You know, we are going to have our individual bills from there, and they did stress a lot that it was not a town cost saving. It is definitely maybe moving forward technology wise, but it's still going to cost the town money.